to week 10 of dual language kindergarten. I had parent teacher conferences last week. We had fall break. I had planned to get a couple of videos done over fall break and finish a digital version of my quarterly language assessments. That did not happen. I'm okay with that. My own kiddos had tournaments for sports, and we had family come into town and visit, and I got a lot of sleep, which is not a bad thing. But I know that wintertime is coming. Fall sports are almost finished. They're wrapping up in the middle of the week next week. So I'm definitely going to have more time to kind of like hibernate or hunker down and finish up those pieces. So today and tomorrow, I'm going to try to get some recording done in my classroom. I'm here just about 15 minutes earlier than my contract time so I can get some recording done. And then I'll try to finish it up tomorrow. But we're going to talk about what are we doing week 10, what has changed in second quarter in my classroom, and then, as promised, we'll talk a little bit about how I handle behavior in my classroom. So the first thing we're going to start off with is social emotional learning. We are still going over zonas de regulación, the zones of regulation, and we're focusing a lot right now on the yellow zone. And then school-wide, we are having like a safety week. So it's one of the reasons why I didn't record yesterday, because I had to wear this big orange shirt. All the teachers were wearing it. But it just gives a lot of details kind of about my school building, and so I didn't end up doing any recording yesterday. So it is safety week, so we're talking about what that looks like, what that feels like. The kids are learning some new key vocabulary, seguridad, seguro, those types of things. So that's all good. That doesn't necessarily have to do with what's going on in my classroom. That's kind of just like building wide. Phonics, we are focusing on letra E. So I'm still using this resource by Karina Bermudez. And my kids are loving the puppets that come at the end of the study. That's been like a real highlight for them. So we're kind of backtracking a little bit because las vocales are not coming along as quickly as they were for my last group of kids, which is fine. But our curriculum, the Estrellita curriculum, does not really allow us to go as in depth as this group of kiddos needs. So I'm supplementing and kind of slowing down on that portion for phonics. For math, we are currently working on Module 2 of Eureka Math. So we're talking about shapes and positional phrases. We started with Lesson 4 today, and we're hoping to get through Lesson 9. I am also working on fluency counting to 10. So I've found almost every read aloud that has a book where we practice counting by tens. There's a great series in Scholastic. They have at least 5 of them. So today we're reading 10 Little Puppies in English and Spanish, just to kind of reinforce the counting fluency to 10 and that concept of one-to-one correspondence. I have a couple of lessons recorded and up on YouTube for the concept development. I think I have like 2 so far. But like I said, my goal for each module is to get up at least 10 lessons. So I have those available to me for the kids to work on independently, or when we have a guest teacher, or if there's a time where I need to do a small group or do assessments, they can still get the math lesson or access the math lesson on their own. And I can already see that many teachers, many students are already using those resources. So I'm definitely going to keep on going with that. It's super exciting. But That is what has changed in math. We're not allowed to use scissors in my classroom, so Module 2 has a lot of cutting, a lot of pieces. So if your students need fine motor skills, this is going to be a great unit for you, and that also helps kind of fill up a little bit of your math block. Our math block is 45 to 60 minutes, normally 45 whole group and problem set, and then 15 minutes of small group math games, IXL, those types of things. And that's something new. So second quarter, I gave all of my students access to IXL, which is a math app that helps with fluency, or it helps kids who have missing skills. And so the group who is working in IXL right now are working on numbers to 3 or numbers to 5. And we have 7 kids who are working on numbers to 3 and numbers to 5 out of 44. So, if you need comparisons for your own group. But like I said, lots of cutting, lots of sorting shapes, those types of things. I've got everything already cut out for today. Today we're working on positional phrases, so that should be interesting. But it's a great time to add in math read alouds. It's a great time to use that time to practice fine motor skills, because the lessons are so short and they're not like memory heavy. A lot of these things children already know naturally. They just needed to put it kind of more concrete. We have started Module A of Benchmark Adelante. Hello, happy Thursday. So we are still in week 10. I have not gotten a chance to finish up my recordings for this week. I think where we left off, we were talking about phonics. Phonics right now is just a quick 10-15 minute time in my day. We're focusing solely on las vocales right now. That seems to be a very hard concept for my kids. And then we're moving on to Benchmark Adelante. Okay, so Benchmark Adelante is sort of like an all-inclusive curriculum that handles reading, writing, grammar, and ties in some science and social studies standards. It is meant for a full day program. I try to teach all of its components so that my students don't have any gaps in their learning. I think it's a really wonderful program. Do I think that it might go a little bit too deep? Some days, yes, especially for the group of students that I have this year. They are very young, but we started it this week. We started it in second quarter. We are 4 days in, and the conversation component of it, allowing my kids the talk time, that is kind of the harder part. There is a good amount of time that they are sitting in a whole group lesson, 20, 25 minutes. Is a very long stretch of time for them. So this year we're trying to get a little bit more creative with the different components, and it might take some playing around with. But right now in my day, I have either a 45-minute block or a 30-minute block, and that really depends on how long our math lesson takes. We are ahead of our scope and sequence for math, and our math unit right now is kind of easier on the teaching side. Math could take only about 30 minutes, where sometimes it takes 60. Okay, so I kind of alternate every other day. 30 minutes of benchmark, the next day 45 minutes of benchmark. The 45 minutes is when I'll have a writing component mixed in with it. So we do use the notebooks that come with it. These are reusable, recyclable. Last year, I feel like they were a little bit too low for my group of kindergartners. And this year, I feel like they're going to be right on target. Now, you don't use the notebooks every single day, okay? Not every single day do they have a writing component. Some days, it's just kind of like communication, a sit and get, a read aloud, those types of things. Now, I do have another resource that I created last year. This is in my TPT store. I do have it for 3 of the benchmark units. It's a writing journal. Okay. Now, the writing a lot of times will prompt you to use a blank piece of paper. And for my students, a blank piece of paper is very overwhelming. It needs to be very explicit, and there needs to be lots of modeling ahead of time. So we use, if I don't have anything specific that I want them to write about, we use the basic one where it says hoy aprendí, today I learned, and they can fill that in with a new vocabulary word, anything along with the topic, and then they draw whatever we want, and I keep these and I put them in the journal for them. Then there's kind of a larger space for like my kiddos who can write maybe more than one sentence. I don't have any kids like that right now. We are specifically just working on labeling the picture with the beginning sound. Okay, so week 10 of kindergarten, we are labeling with the beginning sound. Now there are a few kids, maybe like 5 or 6 out of the 44, that can almost sound out a whole entire word. Now there are some days where there's just a blank line. Cuando yo era, these kind of just go along with the benchmark lessons. They are just sentence starters that I kind of thought would be most helpful, and kind of like the sentences I was trying to get my students to start with when I used benchmark last year. And we couldn't, some of them really needed the sentence starters. Now there's handwriting lines in here it's very adapted. There's ones with handwriting lines, there's ones with tracing lines. I am updating this one currently, like as I go through reteaching the units again, I want to adapt it even more to all of the learning needs. So one of the suggestions is to, on the traceable ones, to up the font size. My thought on this was that we want these kindergartners to be learning how to write on notebook paper. Okay, sorry, lost my train of thought. I will talk about 2 of the pieces that I love. I love having the online component because they will read the stories aloud to the kids, which is really helpful sometimes. And also, I love like the songs and the videos that go along with it. The videos really help the children come back to the whole theme, the whole purpose, the whole objective of why we are reading all of these stories, why we're writing about all of these different topics, and so on. Now, when they are doing their writing components, they have these mats. Okay, so they have the sound boxes on the back that are super helpful. And then they have the alphabet up here. Up here in this dry erase spot, I can either put like a key vocabulary word or the letters that I think that they're going to need the most help with. And then this is just a work area where they can practice a word before they write it in their journal. And this is one of my very favorite pieces. This is easily reproducible, but I just have them laminated. They're wonderful. The big books, for some reason, every year I have children who are just amazed that there are books this humongous. So the big books are really wonderful. Obviously, this is great on days where your technology is not working, or you have a guest teacher, or you just need to switch it up a little bit because your kids need to see something different. That is kind of how my classroom has changed. Week 10, we are doing very intense reading, science and social studies kind of all together. Phonics has been shortened, the amount of time we spend on phonics. There are phonics components inside of Benchmark. So even though like our explicit phonics lessons are shorter, there are phonics pieces within Benchmark. So some days they're getting exposure to 2 phonics lessons. And then as far as routines in the classroom that have been changing, I have a student leader now in second quarter. So the student leader get to use the microphone and do saludos every single morning. So they stand up in the morning at the beginning of our day, beginning of morning meeting with the microphone. They call all of the students' names and they do the morning greetings. Then they are also responsible for helping the teacher erase the board, hand out papers, hold the door, run to the office for little tasks, those types of things. And my students absolutely love it. They have really taken this role very seriously, and my students as a whole are responding very well to it. Now, that being said, I am only 6 days in, so I've only had a student leader 6 times, but they're doing a really great job, and that's just another way that I'm able to assess their vocabulary and their understanding, because they are giving this daily greeting and they are giving commands in another language. So that's just super helpful. Another way for me to assess. And the parents really love seeing the video of their child being in charge of the daily greeting. That's something that I share on the Seesaw app. Now we do have daily stations. They still have their purposeful playtime, which is gone from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. None of my students have noticed. And now we have stations. Because I only do a half day with my kids, 2 of our stations are play stations right now, where eventually they won't be play. Right now it's puzzles. And then there's another coloring one, which is supposed to be a craft, but because we don't have scissors in my classroom right now, it's coloring. And then at one station, they're doing IXL, and then the other one, they're doing a phonics review. Now, the stations are only 7 minutes long, so it takes less than 30 minutes total. And IXL, if they're just working on one skill, 7 minutes is plenty of time. Some of my students will even do 2 skills in that 7-minute time period, and it's totally fine. Eventually, that craft center will turn into something else, where they will be doing syllables when we get to syllables. This year, I don't think it'll be until after winter break, so we'll see how that goes. Truly hope to finish this recording today. I might do a part 2 to talk about classroom management and behavior. It is almost my contract time, and I've had like 3 or 4 people come into my room this morning to talk, so I didn't get the best out of my time this morning, which is okay. That's the life of the teacher. But yeah, I am almost to contract time, so I'm gonna wrap up week 10. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have suggestions for the writing component of Benchmark, or you use Benchmark, I would love to hear how much time you have and what components you're deciding to use.